Hello, this is David Wilcoxon, and this Olivet Discourse Deception study gives an explanation of the Apostle Paul's reference to the fullness of the Gentiles and that all Israel shall be saved in Romans 11. The futurist prophecy fulfillment narrative teaches that the Heavenly Father is dealing with the Gentiles during a dispensational period. They teach that once the full number of Gentiles is saved, they will be raptured out, and then the Heavenly Father will deal with the Jews, and that all the people in Israel will be saved. That explanation is based on a false understanding of the 70th week of Daniel 9 prophecy, which I prove in the 70th week of Daniel 9 Decoded video series. And that dispensational explanation is based on a false understanding of who is Israel. In the Revelation is an Israel Prophecy book video, I show how the Apostle Paul tells us that a true Israelite is not one of flesh, but of spirit. The commonwealth of Israel is made up of both Jews and Gentiles who have a covenant relationship with the Father through faith in his Son. Paul is telling us that a true Israelite believes in Messiah's atoning work and so inherits the promises made to Father Abraham. Everyone who believes in Messiah by faith are the chosen people of God. Now let's focus on what the Apostle Paul is talking about in Romans 11:24-26, which says, "For if thou wert cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these, which be the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye be wise in your own conceits. The blindness in part is happened to Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in, and so that all Israel shall be saved. As it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob." Paul wrote those words before Jerusalem, the temple, and the Jewish nation were desolated during the Jewish-Roman War of 66 to 70 AD. Paul is contrasting unbelieving Israel, who was blinded about their coming judgment during the war, with believing Israel, which was saved from the calamity as they escaped to the mountains of Pella. I believe that the fullness of the Gentiles is referring to the Gentile Roman army being sent to desolate the unbelieving Jewish nation. And I pray that you will listen to the whole explanation to hear out the matter. In Matthew 23, Messiah foretold that judgment was coming upon the Jewish leaders who continued in their rebellion against the Heavenly Father and who rejected Messiah and delivered him up to be killed. Then Messiah proclaimed that the second temple would be desolated, and he told his disciples what would take place beforehand, with the key sign being the abomination of desolation. His saints, the true Israelites, saw the abomination of desolation take place in November 66 AD, when Cestius and his army surrounded the temple, fulfilling Luke 21:20-21, which says, "And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto." Cestius was ready to take the city captive, but then he and his army left for no explained reason. Messiah's saints heeded the sign of the abomination of desolation and took the opportunity to flee to the mountains, just as Messiah told them to. Then 3 strong divisions of the Roman army came against Judea during the Jewish-Roman War of 66 to 70 AD, which led to 1.1 million Jews dying in and around Jerusalem from famine, pestilence, infighting, suicide, evisceration, crucifixion, and by the Roman sword. Daniel 9:26 foretold that Jerusalem and the temple would be desolated because of the abominations of the Jews in rejecting their promised Messiah and delivering him up to be killed. It says, "And the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined." The war that's being referred to is the Jewish-Roman War of 66 to 70 AD. The war ended when the Roman army flooded into Jerusalem in 70 AD and desolated Jerusalem, the temple, and the Jewish nation. Daniel 12 tells us that the information about the coming desolation of the Jewish nation was sealed up from the eyes of unbelieving Jews, so that they wouldn't understand what is the abomination of desolation and flee Jerusalem. In fact, when Cestius and his army left in 66 AD, the Jews were emboldened as they believed that the Heavenly Father was defending them. So they chased after the army and killed some of the fleeing soldiers, which incited the Romans even more and brought harsh judgment on the Jewish nation. Daniel 12:1 says, "Thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book." This is pointing to the Jews who believed in Messiah, whose names are written in the book of life, as they fled Judea before the war, so they were delivered from the calamity of the time of Jacob's trouble, which came upon the unbelieving Jewish nation. Luke 21 points to the judgment of the unbelieving Jewish nation. "For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled." So where was it written? Daniel 9:26, Daniel 12 foretold this judgment, these days of vengeance. "But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled." In that generation, in 70 AD, the Gentile Romans flooded into Jerusalem and killed hundreds of thousands of Jews by the sword, fulfilling that prophecy. Luke 21:25 says, "And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and waves roaring." This symbolic language, which is defined in the Old Testament, is pointing to the Jewish leadership system, the high priest, the sun, Sanhedrin, the moon, and the priests, the stars, being darkened, as they were either killed or taken as captives. Luke 21:26 says, "Men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory." This points to Messiah carrying out his judgment against the unbelieving Jews by using their enemy, the Gentile Romans, to desolate them. It's not pointing to Messiah's return. The unbelieving Jewish leaders understood that it was Jesus, whom they rejected and delivered up to be killed, who was carrying out this judgment. Recall that Messiah told the high priest that he would see Messiah come in power and glory. In other words, he would see him come in judgment of this Jewish nation which was rejecting him and delivering him up to be killed. Luke 21:28 says, "And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh." Luke 21 is part of the Olivet Discourse. It's explaining to the disciples and the followers of Messiah what they would see take place in that generation. This is not pointing to Messiah's return, but rather to the believing Jews being delivered, redeemed from the calamity of the Jewish-Roman War, as they heeded Messiah's warnings in the Olivet Discourse of the abomination of desolation and fled to the mountains of Pella for safety. In the parable of the minas in Luke 19, Messiah pointed to the Jews who would not serve him. He said, "Therefore, a certain nobleman went into a far country to receive for himself a kingdom, and to return. And he called his 10 servants, and delivered them 10 pounds, and said unto them, Occupy until I come. But his citizens hated him, and sent a message after him, saying, We will not have this man to reign over us." Luke 19:27 shows the judgment of those. Says, "But those mine enemies, which would not that I should reign over them, bring hither and slay them before me." This was fulfilled when the Roman army flooded into Jerusalem in 70 AD and slew hundreds of thousands of Jews by the sword. In the parable of the vineyard owner in Mark 12, Messiah points to the judgment of the Jews who sought to kill him. "Having yet therefore one son, his well-beloved, he sent him also last unto them, saying, They will receive my son. But those husbandmen said among themselves, This is the heir. Come, let us kill him, and the inheritance shall be ours. And they took him, and killed him, and cast him out of the vineyard. What shall therefore the Lord of the vineyard do? He will come and destroy the husbandman, and will give the vineyard unto others. Jerusalem, the temple, and the Jewish nation was destroyed in 70 AD. The Jewish leadership system, which rejected their promised Messiah, was removed from power, as they were either killed or taken captive and sold as slaves. And the kingdom was given to believing Jews and Gentiles who preached the gospel to the nations. In the parable of the wedding feast in Matthew 22, Messiah proclaimed that armies would be sent to destroy those who rejected him. The kingdom of heaven is like unto a certain king, which made a marriage for his son, and sent forth his servants to call them that were bidden to the wedding, and they would not come. Again he sent forth other servants, saying, Tell them which are bidden, Behold, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fatlings are killed, and all things are ready. Come unto the marriage. But they made light of it, and went their ways, one to his farm, another to his merchandise. And the remnant took his servants, and entreated them spitefully, and slew them. But when the king heard thereof, he was wroth, and he sent forth his armies, and destroyed those murderers, and burned up their city. 3 strong legions of the Roman army destroyed Jerusalem, the temple, and the unbelieving Jewish nation in 70 AD. The city of Jerusalem was burned up and plowed under, making it to look like it had never been inhabited. In Messiah's Olivet Discourse, he foretold events that would take place before the end of the latter days of the Jewish age. The former days took place before the Jews' Babylonian captivity, and the latter days spanned from when they were released from Babylon until the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and the temple in 70 AD. Because the unbelieving Jews did not understand Daniel 12, as it was sealed up, or Messiah's Olivet Discourse, they were blinded to the events that came upon them during the 3.5 years of the Jewish-Roman War of 66 to 70 AD, and worse yet, they were lost spiritually. All Israel, the followers of Messiah, were saved from being desolated by the Roman army. Jewish historian Josephus does not document any of Messiah's saints as being killed, so indeed, all Israel was saved. It's not talking about the Zionist state of Israel. It's talking about a true Israelite, one who has a covenant relationship with the Father through faith in the Son, being saved, and in that case, being redeemed from the calamity of the war. And we need to pray for Jews to understand Isaiah 53, Daniel 9, and the New Testament, which are forbidden for them to read by their leaders, so that they will see the glory of their promised Messiah and enter into a covenant relationship with the Heavenly Father through faith in the Son. I created a 1-page PDF that you can save, print, and share with Jews to help them see that their Messiah has already come to atone for their sins. I'll include a link to the PDF in the video description. I pray that this study helps you see who is a true Israelite, so that you can see that all Israel is saved, and not be misled by the futuristic explanations of prophecy fulfillment or the false concept of dispensationalism. I prove out the fulfillment of Messiah's Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21 in the Olivet Discourse Decoded video series and book. On the olivetdiscourse.com website, you can save PDF summaries, request a free PDF copy of my book, or order a printed copy. If this kind of information benefits you, please like the video, comment, and share it with others, as this helps get the video ranked so that others will see the explanations. Subscribe to the channel if you want to be notified about new videos. That's all for today. Keep pressing on for the glory of our King. I love y'all. Shalom.